Okay guys, so this is part 2 of our Kata and sparring video. In the first video we talked about developing touch sensitivity, closing the distance whenever the opponent attacks or moves, and also having a universal guard. As a recap, touch sensitivity means that you kind of feel what your opponent's about to do, right? And that only can happen once you're connected somehow. From here, my only way to know what he's about to do is my vision, right? Because I have to detect his hips moving, whatever's moving I'm going to block. But once you're here in a clinch range, you should start to develop a feeling of what's going to happen just because you understand his body mechanics and what's moving, right? So if I'm connected here, he throws a punch, I should be able to feel that just because he had to pull back or just because he had to shift his body weight onto his front foot to throw that back on.
So closing the distance is necessary, and whenever you can implement it, it's always a good practice, good habit to develop. If he's throwing something, you can at least try to stuff whatever technique that he's doing. So you're going to like kind of disrupt his movement pattern and stuff like that.
So just a summary on the universal guard. It's having a guard up that's not blocking anything in particular, right? Covering the chin part, covering around the neck, covering back here. Having this type of universal guard, even one that covers top and bottom, right? Something like this. It's going to be an effective way to stay protected, stay shielded, and also close the distance. So in this video, we want to start off by talking about the footwork from Kata that translates into sparring. Those shuffles, the cat stances, the sideways front stances, those are all applicable because it helps you move around your opponent, it helps you close the distance more effectively. Also, if you need it to go back, it's going to let you change angles real quickly as well. In Kata, when you see blocks, most likely they can also be types of frames, but keeping your opponent away from you while you move around that anchor point. For example, if you see this as a middle block, but he's pushing against me, so I'm framing like this. This part is now stagnant, so it allows me to shift my body around. And now I can do whatever I want from there, right? But it's not necessarily a block per se. Notice how those frames allow him to create a more advantageous position for himself, right? So I came in meeting him straight, he framed and moved off center, now he sees me at a different angle. Those frames can lead into strikes, right? So not only are they blocking the opponent from closing the distance, it also opens gaps for you to throw strikes. So if you look at Kata, it doesn't look like there's a lot of head movement in the forms that you do. But instead, try to think of it as your head's moving at the same time as you're receiving an attack, right? So there are movements in Katas where you're going this way or here, right? You're trying to frame, move to see a better angle, and you're recentering yourself.
A good way to kind of get around to doing all this kind of stuff is using kind of like the human dummy. It kind of helps everything kind of manifest better if you're doing it on somebody who's giving you a little bit of resistance. And that resistance helps not only you work your movements out, but it also helps push your body around. Okay, so then other variations you can do with this human dummy is practicing moving forward and back with it as well. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to use Michael here and I'm going to move past him, right? So I'm seeing the attack or an appendage here and I'm going to move here, step past, and then feel like I'm executing, right? So I mean, that's not exactly how, this goes like that, but going right this way. Come here. So I'm trying to get as far past him as possible. But this also gives you other things that you can do if you continue that kind of like really aggressive push.
So along with that concept, as you're fighting using kata, the battle really is about dominating their personal bubble. If I'm where he is and I have good balance, then everything else is gonna fall into place. So again, let's try to use kata-based footwork and really try to infringe on our opponent's space. All the pulls that you see on your upper body are predicated by the stances and the foundation you build with your lower body. So adding on to that, if you mess with the base and then your hands are free to strike, your strikes can propel your opponent to fall. I mess with this base and that allows my hands to be free to actually strike them down, right? So this is where your kata movements kind of start coming out. So if in the case you do have to step backwards or give ground, use that as a springboard to move forward again. We're going to do a drill here where Aaron's going to do kata-based movements on me as a dummy, but randomly I'm going to do a shove. And what he's going to do is use that shove to move away but springboard again into another angle. So all these drills from the first video to this video, it all builds on each other, right? And one of the common themes found through all of these is that you want to get rid of that middle range. If we just stay here and try to hit each other, someone's gonna get knocked out because we're both firing at full power, right? Because we have the full swing of our body. We can even throw some low kicks if we want to. You see this a lot in combative sports. But if you're thinking of purely self-defense or purely combative sparring, then ideally you want to finish the confrontation as quickly as possible. So that means whenever he moves, that's an indication for me to get in. And then once you're here, you got to be able to play with your kata in a clinch range position. So let's do some kata movements, and I'm going to give you some different images. And if I throw attacks while he's doing this, he's gonna feel it. Even if he throws an attack, he does whatever, and I try to attack, he's gonna feel that because his touch sensitivity is heightened. Not because we're more skillful, it's because we play in this range. His sensitivity is better than his eyes at this point, right? Because he could probably do this with his eyes closed. Just because you can feel where the body is going, and you can feel how to manipulate the body because my center is off at different angles.
So our sensei always taught us that when in doubt, you attack the computer. You see in the last thing, like everything I'm doing here goes around to me trying to get to this, right? The only time that I'm gonna go anyplace else is if I can't get up there. If I get in a situation where he's pushing me down and I'm here and I'm worried about this, well then my attacks come here, right? So then my attacks come here as hard as I can. So even if he's coming here, he's pushing on you or pushing on me, then right there, anchoring his joint, boom, popping, pull. You know, all that stuff is, it doesn't look like it's kata, but that's the same as doing, right? I mean, mess it up and that's what it starts to look like.
Whatever you want to attack is actually whatever's in front of you, right? So if he has his guard up, I don't need to try to figure out how am I going to pass his guard so I can go to his head. Just start doing your katas on what's there, right? And the head's going to present itself because he's going to drop his guard or you're dropping it for him. So a lot of the times people starting back here and they try to sharp shoot to the head or they do this and try to go to the body, right? when there are already close things that are going to lead you to the body beforehand, right?
Move on.
So as you saw from that short demonstration, it looks like our touch sensitivity was very minimal, but it's just happening at a very fast speed, right? So while we're drilling, it looks like this. I'm feeling where he's gonna punch. We're going at like 20%. I kind of feel where the arms are coming at. But once you make contact with someone in a real like situation where it's 80%, 100% going full power, then your sensitivity has to be so instantaneous that when I touch here and he throws a punch, I gotta feel that quickly, right? So that's why most of the exchanges look like we're trying to close the distance and then we touch and then we kind of feel what's gonna happen next. So we touch and he throws. So let's see if we could play in the mid-range and just touch and then try to throw. Okay?
Alright.
I'll try to mess around with that.
Not hit each other.
And not hit each other.
Yeah, alright.
So it's kind of like hot potato or operator, right? So first knockout on camera.
Alright.
So that short exchange there, if we had not developed touch sensitivity, I feel his foot on me and I would have been resisting this impact here. So all of my mind, all of my mental processes would have just gone to here and maybe try to resist this as much as possible. Same with if you grabbed my hand here, which happened just now. If I didn't do this, then all of my thing would be trying to get this out of here and I'm gonna get welded in the face with this. Even as he's punching, I'm probably still gonna be wondering about this because if I don't train sensitivity, everything's gonna go to what the stimulus is, and the stimulus is this grip on my wrist, right?
One needs to always remember that really, like karate is not really, any martial art is not really necessarily meant to fight other martial artists. I mean, I know that's what it's become, like sport kind of stuff or whatever, but this stuff was all meant to defend yourself against thugs on the street. Right, so it becomes like, you know, like a game of attrition, you know, so to speak, you know, because I know all his tools, he knows all my tools, so it becomes a very difficult and like a very dangerous kind of deal, also, right? But you know, that's why those things happen really quickly because Michael's not going to let me just grab yank and clock him, right? Whereas if some guy on the street you're going to go like. That might happen and he's gonna do boom, right? That stuff like that happens all the time. You know, Michael's not gonna give me that, right? So as soon as that happens, right, that exchange, as soon as this happens, then I'm gonna roll off of it, right? And then Michael's gonna keep grabbing. You know, just as like saying Michael's not gonna give me like an arm drag, right? Arm drag doing this motion. Yeah, some bozo off the street who does this thing, you do this. You got it. Michael's not gonna let me go like this. Yeah, see, he comes forward. You know, so that's another thing to remember. It's very difficult to really implement it really well on somebody who's just as skilled as you are at it. So just keep that in mind.
If you have practice in other disciplines or if you want to implement another style, then that's a good way to drill too. So we do this a lot. Like I'm the street fighter, Aaron's the karate guy. I'll just do typical street fighting movements or typical boxing movements, typical kickboxing movements, and he stays in a karate style. And that kind of helps manifest things for him a lot easier than just two karate guys going head to head.